All right, we are back here from the NFL Combine in Indy. The offseason is about to heat up. And joining me now, he is one of my favorites. He writes the Football Morning in America column that comes out every Monday morning for NBC Sports. It is the great Peter King. Peter, thanks for doing this. Great to see you again.
Great. Pleasure to be with you, Ari. Hey, it was good to meet you at the Combine. That was fun. I'm walking along in a hallway there, and here you come. And it was good to finally meet somebody who I've followed for a while, and you're doing a great job.
I appreciate that. And yeah, I
Sure.
mean, the combine, just walking around, seeing a bunch of people who you're writing about and people you talk to, people you see on social media, whatever it is, congregating in one place and just seeing everybody, it's quite the experience. And you always read about how people wanted to stay in Indianapolis and why it's so great. Now I understand why they say that. It is literally the perfect spot.
I mean, there's a lot of cities in the United
Yeah.
States, obviously, that are big enough and have enough hotel rooms to host the scouting combine. But the problem is what happens is that they're spread out,
Right.
and Indianapolis is the least spread out, decent sized city in America. And so to me, I just think that, and I wrote about this in my column on Monday. Yeah. I think Indianapolis is going to have it one more year. And for people who say, well, who cares? And really, it's not a big story, but the reason that it matters to people is, and I give you a great example. The other day, I was going to meet Mickey Loomis, the Saints general manager. We were going to meet for lunch about 12 or 12:15. And I'm waiting there. It's like 12:25, and he walks in, and he had come from the furthest place that he could have come from in the downtown area. And what was really odd is that he was kind of huffing and puffing, hey, sorry, I'm late. But I mean, he was 7 minutes late. If you have it anywhere where people have to be in cars in midday and you have tight schedules, everybody's going to be late for everything. So it's just kind of an odd thing that I really think that there will be quite a few coaches, all the general managers and scouts will go regardless of where it is. But I think quite a few coaches won't go, and they'll just catch up on video. And honestly, as one said, I mean, really, I can watch this on TV just as well. I get a better view of it, honestly, than from the box where we're in with binoculars. So I do think it'll stay in Indy for one more year, but at the end of the day, it wouldn't be the decline of Western civilization if it didn't.
Right. And again, like if you're there, you understand how the stadium, the convention center, the hotels, the bars, the restaurants, they're all connected. You barely have to step outside, which is what makes it all so great. You mentioned your column. Before I get into all the nitty and gritty, I'm someone who's very into, I guess, the behind the scenes of how everything comes together. I was kind of curious. I don't know how many people have asked you before, but how long does it take you to actually put it all together? Because it's so detailed and there are so many nuggets in there, and you talk to so many different people for it all to come together. On average, how long does it take to put that all together?
During the season, Ari, I usually start putting it together on Friday morning. And I would say I probably write about 50% of the column before any of the Sunday games start. Then if something great happens in the Sunday night game, I'd say 3 or 4 times a year, I throw everything out the window at 11 o'clock at night and turn my attention to making sure I get something out of the Sunday night game. And then everything else moves down in the column a bit. Try to be done by 3 a.m. That's pretty much how I do it.
Right. I mean, and that's kind of why I asked, because people don't get to see the behind the scenes of how everything comes together and the jobs that we all do. And there's a lot of work, and sometimes it goes, especially for you, until 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning, whatever it is. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and people don't really appreciate it, I guess. And that's kind of why I wanted to ask, just to get the inner workings of how it all comes together. It's always tremendous, always a must read. And I feel like one of the main topics in your upcoming column here this Monday will probably be Calvin Ridley and what happened here this week with him getting
Yeah.
suspended for at least 1 year for betting on NFL games. I guess let me start with your initial reaction when it all came through, when it all happened. What was your initial
Well,
reaction?
at first, obviously, it's shocking because it's just wasn't
Yeah.
thinking of that. So a lot of times something happens around the NFL. Same thing it'll be whenever Aaron Rodgers makes his decision and announces it. I mean, by the time people are listening to this, who knows? Maybe he will have done that, but that'll be and that's the way this was. But upon further review, as they say, I don't really think it should be shocking because I don't know. I wrote about this recently. There was a story in the New York Times in February about how in the first, I think it was 5 weeks, might have been 6 weeks of legalized sports gambling in the state of New York, 1 out of every 6 adults got the app to gamble on sports with one of the, Caesars, DraftKings, whoever. And, just think about that. That's over 2 million people. Over 2 million people decided that they were going to take advantage of this new thing, legalized sports gambling. And I think it would be unrealistic to think that if there are, I think there's 1,696 active players in the NFL at a given time. There's probably another 800 to 1,000 at a given time who are either on injured reserve or practice squads around the league. So you add all that together and you say, okay, let's just round it off. 2,700 men between the age of 21 and 40 who are very much, they're very young, very able to be influenced by trends and what's going on in the modern world. I think it'd be incredibly naive to think that a lot of those players somehow, some way, are not somehow gambling on something. Okay. So it's legal for NFL players to play blackjack and to do things like that. But obviously it's not legal for them to gamble on NFL games. Now, you and I might look at this and say, why in the world was Calvin Ridley using his own name? And probably I would assume a credit card with Calvin Ridley on it. I mean, I don't know. I would think if a guy who knows that it's illegal and it's against the NFL rules to do that, wouldn't you, wouldn't you maybe use either not necessarily a pseudonym, but like, let's say your girlfriend had a credit card and you just used hers and you used the name, whatever, John Doe. I don't know. I don't know how. I haven't really thought it through about how to do it, but it just seems a little weird and a little bit naive that a guy would use his own name. And I heard a credit card that was traced to him and an app that had it in his name. Just seems a little bit not too smart if you're trying to do something and not get caught. But I would be surprised if that's the only time this happens in the next few months or years, Ari.
Here's the thing for me, because you mentioned a couple of the betting companies. The league has 7 gambling sponsors right now. The ads are all over the place. They have all these promo codes that entice you to want to try it. It's never been easier. All you need is a phone. I guess players could learn from Calvin and say, fine, we won't do it on our own phone. We won't do it under our own name. But there are for sure players who are using their cousins or their friends or their girlfriends, whatever it is. How does the league stop that? It's going to become an issue, right?
I would think that would be something that's going to be very hard to police. In fact, I'm thinking of a third day angle for my column next Monday, and I've already put out a couple of lines, both one inside the NFL and one out, about almost exactly that same topic. What kind of fascinates me is the infrastructure that's set up to make sure that NFL players aren't gambling, number one, because I think people would be interested. I don't really know what it is. And so I'm going to do something on that. The other thing I'm going to do is to do something on how odd it is that that anybody could ever think this was an outlier now that sports gambling has become legal in so many places in the country. I mean, I'm not saying this is going to be like COVID, where in December 400 players test positive, but I think absolutely unequivocally that Calvin Ridley's not going to be the only one.
All right, so this is, it just went down. I'm sure we're going to be talking about it for the next couple of weeks, probably months, and it'll continue to be a topic as gambling becomes bigger. I want to shift over right now to this franchise tags that are going on right now as we speak. There were 3 tight ends tagged, several other guys are getting tagged, taking them off the market. I was kind of curious just to hear your perspective on why the NFLPA has never tried to go all in to eliminate it, or at least change how it can be used. Maybe just the quarterbacks, or you can only do it once. Why is it still a thing after this latest CBA?
I think it just doesn't affect enough people. I mean, if you think about it, how many guys get tagged every year? 7 or 8? I mean, is it worth
it's been
however many?
15. Yeah, I mean,
yeah. I mean, it's varied over the years, but I think most quarterbacks know that a team is never going to let him go to market. I mean, look at the Aaron Rodgers thing last year. Now, Brian Gutekunst, the general manager of the Packers, said at the combine that there's no deal in place, that if Aaron wants a trade, he will be traded. I can tell you that is not the understanding of the Rodgers camp. So we'll see what happens in that. But Aaron Rodgers, basically, to get him to come back, the Packers assured him that they would not use the franchise tag on him in 2023, which would mean that, like when Tom Brady was a free agent at 42, he was in play in a lot of places, and obviously he signed somewhere and won a Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers would be in play at 39 with he's had some injuries, but he's got no current injury history. He's a fanatic about taking care of himself and doing all this sort of offbeat things that can keep a person healthier longer. So he won a huge concession from the Packers, number one. But Ari, I think the fact is that it's just not something that influences enough people to the point that they would sacrifice major gains in another area, basically to make 15 to 20 players happy. It just doesn't affect. It doesn't affect enough players.
There could be a trickle-down effect if those guys make it to the market, though. If a guy like Dalton Schultz makes it to the market and he's able to get 16 a year, that could help the next tight end who's looking to get a deal as well, if you know what I mean. There could be a trickle-down effect.
You're right, because there always is. But look at what the Baltimore Ravens did last year. I mean, I'm trying to think. They did Marlon Humphrey. I mean, the 2 guys that they did big contracts with last year. Now they did Ronnie Stanley, but they also did Marlon Humphrey.
Yeah.
And they did Mark Andrews. All right. So Marlon Humphrey wanted Jalen Ramsey money and a little more.
Yeah.
Okay. Mark Andrews wanted Travis Kelce money and a little more. And the Ravens basically said, we're not going to do it, and we'll make a deal with you, but we're not going to pay you at that level. And so I think you'd have to look it up, but if my memory serves, each of them signed for about $2 to $3 million under what the high bar was in the NFL. And look, I know nobody wants to hear it, but it's absolutely unequivocally the case. If you want to build a great team, you can't pay everyone at the top of the market, period. It's why, I mean, at the end of this coming year, if the Ravens play great and Lamar Jackson plays great in the playoffs, the Ravens will probably pay him right at the Mahomes level or maybe higher. The reason I don't think they'll pay him at the Mahomes level, I don't know what they would pay him. I really don't. That's been like a mystery. But it strikes me that the Ravens love Lamar. They want to pay Lamar, but he's played 4 playoff games. His offense is scoring 13 points a game in those 4 games. He has not played well, I don't think, in any of the 4 games. So if you're the Ravens, you have to ask yourself, we want to keep this team intact and we want to keep Lamar as our quarterback. But if he, without an agent, is going to insist at being up here, then that's just my feeling watching the Ravens over the years. I think it'll probably be, a non-starter for them, because look at what Mark Andrews did this year. He was the best tight end statistically and probably in an impact way in football. Mm-hmm. And the Ravens paid him, I don't know what the number is, whatever, 14 or 15 a year. And that's why, to me, contract piggyback, contract hopscotch, I think I understand that it's a way of doing business, but I think some of the really smart teams don't let their lives be ruled by it. Look at how many guys, for instance, that the Ravens have let walk. The Ravens now in a draft year that will be ruled by the middle rounds, by like rounds 2, 3, and 4. They have 8 picks in the 3rd and 4th rounds. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons they have those is that they're willing to let people go. And you've seen it over the years. They always let high-priced, especially front 7 guys. That's been their history. And then they just draft guys in the 3rd or 4th round. Sometimes they don't work. Often they do. But anyway, it's a long-winded answer of saying that, I think if the Cowboys do a long-term deal with Dalton Schultz and pay him what Travis Kelce is making, I just think it's stupid.
All right, we'll see what happens there. The Cowboys have a bunch of different big-time contracts on the books already, but they already have officially tagged Dalton Schultz. You mentioned Lamar Jackson. You mentioned his contract situation. Another quarterback dealing with a contract situation is Kyler Murray. And that situation has taken so many twists and turns, and we're only in March. It's kind of cooled off in the public a little bit, but it's nowhere near over. Looking at what's going on over there, the way they've approached this whole thing with the agent coming out with a statement, is that the right way to do it? You know what I mean?
I think Eric Burkhart, the agent for Kyler Murray, has sat back. He knows the Cardinals very well. He's close to Steve Keim, the general manager. He is the agent for Cliff Kingsbury, the coach.
Yeah.
And he has watched how they've done business for a long time. He believes that nice guys do not win with the Arizona Cardinals, and they don't win contracts. And my whole thing, when I first saw this, I thought this is really a bad move by Eric Burkhart. Why burn the boats right away? Why don't you sort of enter into this, into a long-term negotiation, get something done, hopefully before the start of training camp? I don't know this, but now that I've seen it, talked to a bunch of people at the combine about it, I think that one of Burkhart's motives here is that he's trying to get some team to step to the plate to offer a ransom to the Cardinals so that they would trade Kyler Murray for 4 1s or some stupid I don't even think that's stupid. I think that's part of it. But I also think the other thing is, and I wrote this in my column, if something doesn't get done about that contract, I would put money on Kyler Murray not playing this year for the Cardinals at $5.5 million. Because first of all, he's a small guy. He's playing behind an offensive line that, he would never say it, but you just have to watch the games. Kyler Murray got abused a lot this year. So would you play behind that line in your third year in the NFL, making 5.5, knowing that if you get a significant injury, it really could affect your second contract, and it will affect your second contract? I think that is part of it. And I think that the other thing that is in both Murray's favor and works against the Cardinals is that, that franchise won 11 games this year. The year before Kyler Murray got there, they won 3 and had the first pick in the draft. The Cardinals are a factor right now. And why are they a factor? They're a factor because they got an exciting quarterback who keeps them in games and all that. And I'm not saying he's a top 5. I'm not, because I don't think he is. He might turn out to be at some point. What is it? Whatever he is now, 9th, 10th, 12th quarterback. I don't know how you do that stuff. But in my opinion, I think this has the potential to be a difficult off season and summer for the Arizona Cardinals.
Yep, and he's put all the pressure on them. And there were some people who believed, since Cliff is entering the final year of his deal, maybe that's why Kyler wants to get an extension done now in case something happens to Cliff. But no, Cliff now has a deal in place till 2027. So that can be, but they've put a lot of pressure. He's always mentioned baseball is probably the worst time ever to do baseball. So we got to put that.
I don't think baseball.
Now, but yeah,
I don't think baseball's a factor.
Yeah, but
I don't think it's not a factor.
Yeah,
because look, if down the road he has to make a decision like that, maybe he will. I can tell you, they're not going to use baseball as an X factor in this. And if he does, the Cardinals will know he's full of it. He doesn't want to play baseball.
Yeah.
He wants to play football. That is far and away his number one choice. And, look, if you looked at the last 10 years of the top 10 picks in the baseball draft, this is just a guess. I would guess the odds of becoming an everyday player, it's probably out of the top 10 of the draft is probably 3 or 4 in 10. There are more washouts in the draft than there are great players. And I forget this number, but I looked at it when he got drafted. He only had, I think, in college baseball, 70 or 80 at bats. I mean, this is a projection that the Oakland A's did with him. Right. And I could be really wrong on that. I shouldn't have even said that, but he didn't play for 2 full years, in the Big 12 in baseball or whatever. Are they in the Big 12? I forget what they're.
Whatever it is, whatever. There's a whole ladder you have to go through in order to get to the big leagues anyway. So it would take time. So I know he's mentioned it. He's randomly brought it up. It's not something anybody believes could happen, but whatever it is, it's something that's going on right now. And as free agency comes very, very close here, it's still going to be a topic in Arizona. Sticking to the NFC West for a second, you mentioned in your column this week, Kirk Herbstreit is going to take the Thursday Night Football job. I'm looking at the money that people are being thrown at to come and do this. And I look around the NFL at guys like a Sean McVay who could be offered big time money. Do you feel like where things are going right now, media wise, that coaches and possibly players as well will call it quits earlier or take time off earlier than in the past in order to do the media, just because there's similar money or maybe more money to do it? And I guess it's less stressful to do that.
Well, to me, Ari, there's 2 questions. First question, is Ali Marpet an outlier? He's made $26 million and he's retiring at age 28, according to his dad, who told Rick Stroud, the beat guy down in Tampa, he's retiring because he wants to be healthy for the rest of his life. Totally understandable. That's different than retiring to go on television. There's a very limited number of people, coaches and players in the NFL who can make $1 jillion going on TV. Like, I've had many conversations and been with Sean Payton a lot over the years. I think he's a top 10 football person who'd be great in the booth. Okay. He'd be good in the studio too. Don't get me wrong, but it surprised me a little bit that nobody really went after him. So that tells me how many people right now who are playing football have the kind of personality, name, Q rating that could make a broadcaster throw $15 million at him, or 12 million, whatever it is. I don't think there are many of those. Now, I mean, Sean McVay, then who else? Really? Tom Brady would make that money, but after 2 years, somebody would probably find out, and I'd have no idea how Brady would be on TV. But it reminds me, a long time ago, Lawrence Taylor, when he left football, he boasted to Phil Simms that he was going to make $1 million a year, the same as he had made in football. He was going to make $1 million a year to go on TV and to talk about football. And he signed, I think, with TNT. They did Thursday Night Football, if I'm not mistaken. And he signed and he worked 1 year and he made $1 million. And then, you know what? They didn't want him anymore. You know why? He never said anything. He wasn't good on TV. He thought he could just show up and do the job. So, hey, I think Tom Brady, if he set his mind to it, could be great at it. But the fact is, how many guys want to do that and want to work at it and want to be great at it? I think a lot of people over the years have seen TV as a great landing spot after I play football. It is, but long-term, you're never going to make a long-term buck out of it unless you're good on TV. So I don't really think you're going to see a lot of people retire early to go on TV.
Interesting. Last one here before I wrap this up. You mentioned Tom Brady. Are you a believer that he's fully retired, or could we see him coming back here? Because he really hasn't shut the door yet.
I'm not a believer that he's fully retired. If I had to bet right now, I would bet that he would play again, but I easily could be wrong on that. I think that, Mike Florio wrote about this, the fact that Sean Payton, if it all worked out well and there's a lot of roadblocks in the way, taking the Miami job, coach Tom Brady for a couple of years, that's the only way he would have wanted to go back and coach football this year. That was at least Mike's story, and I firmly believe that it's accurate. But I do think that Tom Brady would have to have a place to go that he would have a chance to win with a coach who he felt was good and he could win with. That's just all my guess. It's one of the reasons why I don't absolutely shut the door on Tampa. We'll see what happens, but I am probably in the 55-45 camp that I think he could play again.
Yep. I mean, he was right there for the MVP voting this year. We'll see what Tampa Bay does this offseason. Godwin is either getting tagged or an extension here coming up in the next couple of hours, but they have a bunch of key free agents out there. How the roster will look once Tom decides if he wants to come back will obviously play a huge factor there. All right, Peter, I want to thank you for taking the time. You've been an inspiration to many of us. We love your work. Keep on doing all the great work, and hopefully we could do this again down the line here in the offseason.
Ari, thanks a lot. You're off to a great start. Good luck. Call anytime.
Appreciate it.